We now return to Let's Play Suzerain. Alright. So I've wrapped up all of the extra videos for all the various lore stuff. Gives me a little bit more insight into some of the decisions I should perhaps be making, and why people are behaving the way they are. Anyway, let's continue on with the finalization of the L1 railway contract. We arrived in Enrica by train. After being greeted by cheerful citizens and the local government officials, we headed to the city hall. Here, a significant meeting about the L1 project would take place. Several construction companies sent their representatives to the city hall. Gus arrived earlier with a heartwarming smile. "Hello, Mr. President. Good to see you again. Appreciate you taking up my offer on the stock investment. Armandine is a very promising corporation, and if everything goes well, you'll make solid returns." We definitely don't want to do that. That's pretty corrupt. If being the key word, I might lose all the money I put in. The least likely scenario. You can trust me on these subjects. I'd better, Gus. Simon Hull joined us, and after settling down, we moved on to discuss the details of the L1 railway project. I came with train yesterday, and it was a little uncomfortable. Besides starting our economic recovery, the train journeys here will be much more pleasant, Mr. President. That's a given. This project will improve so many things, ranging from logistics to growth. You made the right choice for sure. I mean, we should probably start being a little bit nicer to our inner circle, I would think, huh? Yeah, I trust your economic plan, Simon. I'm glad to hear that. We should be able to slow down the recession if we finish this project successfully. I'm sure we will. According to your document, many citizens will be employed because of business expansions. And what kind of end results do we expect? Short-term employment and long-term economic development in the Gelsland and Greater Holsword regions. There are so many forgotten people living between the developed cities of Lockhaven and Holsword. They will benefit. Simon searched the documents he was holding and found the one he was looking for. I have the overview of the companies here. Simon handed the files over to me. Look at the files. I looked at the files. 3 corporations were listed: the Sordland State Corporation, Underhall Construction, and Taurus Holding. I reviewed the listed corporations. I also wrote down some notes and ideas. Which corporation should we talk about? Let's talk about the Sordland State. The respected Sordland State Corporation, also known as the SSC, was founded in 1891. It is the main state corporation tasked with running the day-to-day construction services of our country. The SEC is the primary reason why our infrastructure is outdated as is. We need more adapted construction companies. The disadvantage would be going against your election promises of moving away from the state-dominant economy. The Sordland State Corporation lacks a modern way of thinking. They also underperform with their slow construction methods. Gus stopped and laughed. Look at the abysmal regional railway system. Yeah, but they do have a wealth of knowledge in infrastructure. I don't share a great admiration for the SSC, but their track record clearly shows completed contracts with thousands of employees who have experience. According to the preliminary calculations of the SSC, they would need more resources to finish a project of this size. Well, let's hear about the others first. Underhall Construction. The real estate and construction giant was founded in 1925. They expanded during the economic boom of the 30s. Picking this corporation would fit our market economy policy. The CEO of Underhall is Chris Shar, the mayor of Conrad. He sold half his shares a few years ago, but seemed very eager on the L1 bid. I had the chance to work with Underhall Construction before in Holsword. They took several contracts for the central station renovation and excelled at it. I mean, he's going to be kind of biased. So we could... Okay, well, how was your experience with them? Out of the three, this is the company I can trust. They work hard, long, and fast to accomplish their contracts. They will get this done if we give it to them. Now, I'm not so sure about trusting them with such a big contract, especially after the workers' issues, but at least they have worked on several mega projects and have always delivered on time. Working conditions must be respected. This doesn't inspire confidence. Yes, but some of the workers were Agnolian and Wesek, thus not under Sordish labor laws, but under the Immigration Act. That's even more of a red flag. Having worked on the renovation project, I can say that the working conditions were not bad. Extra effort was needed to finish it on time, which they did. That is all. Underhall has specifically mentioned their solid track record and highlighted that the cost of the project would be more than expected for a project of this scale, but finished on time. Yeah, I'm not so sure about them. This is also feeding into the oligarchs, so let's talk about Taurus Holding. Taurus Holding was founded in 1946 and is owned by the entrepreneur Gerald Faze. It is a new holding company whose subsidiaries are use cutting-edge technology from Arcasia to reduce construction costs and prices. They are known to provide for their workers, who are part of the labor union of Sordland. They are a very interesting corporation, especially because of their innovative construction methods, but aren't suitable for large projects like these. So why should we pick them? It would fit our election promises of switching to a free market economy. Awarding contracts to privately owned corporations would be a step in the right direction. Taurus has completed fewer projects than the other companies, however they are slightly faster and cheaper. It won several awards internationally for being one of the fastest growing and advanced companies. Well, we did earlier on say that we should be adopting the technologies of more advanced countries, and them being smaller, I would feel more comfortable with. This is also the company that belongs to our major rival in the PFJP, which I had said earlier I didn't necessarily want to empower, but if we butter his toast, he might help us a little bit on this whole Constitution thing, especially since it seems like we're fighting an uphill battle on that. The innovative aspect is refreshing, especially if they can deliver. Exactly, and why take such a risk now when we need to play it safer with companies like Underhull? They always delivered for the government on time. The project manager from Taurus Holding mentioned that they would be able to finish the project with the allocated funding. They are the only company who found the budget sufficient, making them a cheaper alternative. Yeah, we don't have much money, and the fact that the other guys are like, oh, we're going to need more money. I mean, I don't want to zero this out, so if we can keep within parameters. Our economy has gone down too recently, so I think this is the safer bet. If we do in fact want to keep going with our campaign promise and helping maybe to smooth things over politically, as well as kneecap the oligarchs, I think this is the better choice. So I have settled on Taurus Holding. Good that we're staying consistent to our economic strategy. Simon signed a certain section of the dossier and fixed his glasses. Very well, Mr. President, the contract will be awarded to Taurus Holding. I wish the outcome of the meeting was different, but at the end of the day, the success of the project is what matters. Exactly. The company will be notified today and the construction work will begin immediately after. I think we're off to a good start. My expectations for a grand opening ceremony are late next year. I will be returning to my duties. See you soon, Mr. President. So, we're probably not making too many friends with Gus. Thank you. This concludes the meeting. The meeting ended, and we spent the remainder of the day attending events in Anrika. It was very refreshing to attend cultural dances and hear the traditional Sordish music of the region. We need to be mindful of that. Alright. Is that the only one? Looks looks like. In Dare, the funeral of Bernard Circus, a decision to attend the funeral. The death of Bernard Circus has shocked the country, and his funeral will be held in Dare among a large crowd of sympathizers. Circus was not only a communist poet, but also an elected MP that had a voice. A state funeral has been organized to honor him. The question is whether the president and the administration will attend the funeral or not. I mean, I think we should. I can't see a reason not to. I mean, this would show more solidarity with the fact that he was a part of the government, and therefore an elected part of the government, as opposed to the consequences, I think, of not going would be more to embolden the people that killed him than doing harm to any public image. It is a state funeral, however, I mean, like, we're kind of expected to go, so we will attend the funeral. It would just make sense. We've the diplomatic choice. Okay, back to Dare. The funeral on St. Dast's nearest cemetery. Dark clouds were looming over Dare. They looked daunting as our convoy started approaching the century-old cemetery. It looked like it was going to rain, certainly fitting weather for a funeral. As expected, Bernard Circus's passing maintained its media traction, and all of Sordland was paying attention to the ceremony, especially to what I would say in my speech today. Sir, we've arrived. Raindrops were running down the car window when Sergei opened my door and held an umbrella over my head. As soon as I got out, flashes from the cameras blinded me. See, I don't know which is the friendlier choice. Like, using his name, is that just constantly... And then holding my own umbrella, just being like, thank you, I mean, I don't know. I feel like this is a little bit more, it's not as personable. Plus, it'd be good to be seen holding my own umbrella anyway. It's okay, Sergei, I'll hold my own umbrella. As you wish, sir. He handed me the umbrella and started waiting next to the car with his own. Peter and Carl exited from their own cars in the convoy. That also is a thing, I suppose. Him holding the umbrella over me meant that he couldn't hold it over himself, so maybe that was the better choice. Peter and Carl exited from their own cars in the convoy. They made their way over to me. Anton? Mr. President? I just wanted to inform you that the perimeter is clear and secured completely. There is no one getting in or out without our knowledge. That is good. Good work. Thank you, Carl. Carl bowed his head with respect. Good. If anything happens to Anton, you'll have to answer to the First Lady. And trust me, Carl, you don't want that. Peter let out a laugh, which drew some attention from bereaved attendees. Let's gesture to lower his voice. I gestured at Peter to lower his voice a bit. You're right, sorry. It started to rain. Several unintelligible voices were heard from Carl's radio. He stepped out to reply and returned shortly. We have a small problem, sir. A few, 5 to be exact, Red Youth members are here to attend the funeral. They apparently said they wish to pay their respects to their fallen comrade. Should we let them in? Do you think they pose a security threat? I mean, I doubt that, right? Like, why would they cause trouble here? They wouldn't be the ones posing trouble here. If anything, it's the young swords who killed the guy in the first place. And I really don't think, I don't know. Like, they wouldn't pose a security threat so much as just maybe use the opportunity to create like a protest moment. But at the same time, maybe they wouldn't, just because that would be disrespectful, but you never know. And putting a few guards on them, I'm not sure. I mean, that would be the safe bet, I suppose, but... would this also... I don't know. I think this would be the safe bet. Just in case. It would also... It would not only keep them corralled, but would also perhaps protect them if there are... swords in the audience. Not audience, but whatever. Yeah, put some guards on them. As you command. Let's head over. They're about to start. We walked towards the crowd circled around the grave. Everyone in attendance was wearing black in mourning. The rain started pouring heavily. Bernard's widow and daughter were in the front row, staring at the coffin with a mixture of disbelief, confusion, and above all, a cold, unforgiving sadness. Both of their eyes were very red and swollen from weeping. Before taking my place to observe the ceremony, I gave my condolences to Bernard's wife and his daughter, who looked at me. She reminded me of Diana. When the religious ceremony was done, I was invited by the priest to deliver my speech. I took the podium. I felt like I had a lump in my throat. I couldn't get the daughter's eyes out of my head. Today, we are mourning Bernard Circus, a father, a husband, and a loyal servant of this country. Towards the back of the crowd, I spotted the members of the Red Youth wearing red shirts and black bands of mourning on their arms. They seemed ruly and were respectfully bowing their heads. There was complete silence except for the sound of raindrops. Regardless of his ideology, this was a heinous act made towards a good man. We must end this cycle of violence. What the hell does this mean? The blood of Bernard will not remain on the sacred ground of Sordland? What does that mean? We can use this to continue our message of unity, I suppose. Because I can't make this promise. That is stupid. Circus had a dream of a unified Sordland. In these next months, we will need to fulfill his dream and band together. I mean, this is kind of an empty platitude, but is also the neutral choice. Let us all mourn the passing of Bernard Circus and remember him well. That would be an interesting choice. Appropriate. Is this going to piss off the nationalists? Probably. Probably. I feel like we should do it, though. I kind of want to do it. I don't know what the poem is, though. What are you doing? What are you doing, El Presidente? Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should leave that to somebody else. Yeah, let's be on the safe side, because you never know. We're still in a pretty contentious area here. We really don't want to be. Although this would neutralize any perceived slight of having the guards on the youth out there. Depending on what the poem is, though, it would also be an opportunity to leave him in a good light. Alright, let's risk it. I would now like to recite one of the poems he left us. Oh, I get to choose one. I did join the Red Youth in my own youth in the choices at the beginning of the game. This one kind of could also point towards the the oppressed minorities in our country, the bloodish people, could also maybe see something in this one. It would also be, I mean, this could have multiple meanings, really, because we could also use that as our attempt to use democracy to overthrow the oligarchs and push against the old guard. Alright, let's try this one. They did not let us sing our songs. They are afraid of the dawn. They are afraid of hope, but our songs will be sung. Sure, let's do a moment of silence. During the silence, all that was heard were the ravens. Some attendees started clapping, some crying. The coffin was lowered into the grave by the gravekeepers. After a couple minutes, Bernard Circus was with the soil, no more. Okay, we're not gonna do that. Let's just step down from the podium. I stepped down from the podium. It was time to leave. The widow thanked me with a soft and defeated voice before we dispersed. On my way back to the car, I still couldn't get the eyes of Bernard's daughter, nor the faltering voice of his wife, out of my head. Would Diana, Monica, and Frank look the same way if something happened to me? Peter put his hand on my shoulder. That was a good speech. I sensed only respect from his voice. Thank you. I mean it. I know you do. Come on, it's time to go. We got work to do. He was right. We had work to do. So much more to do. I realized that the rain had stopped, and I looked up. The black clouds slowly dispersed, and sunbeams enlightened our surroundings. As someone once said, even the darkest night will end and the sun will rise. Hope was still on the horizon. We got some news to read here. The Whole Sword Post. They are afraid of hope, but our songs will be sung. Huge crowds of mourners, including President Rayne and other senior Swordish officials, joining for a rare display of unity, poured into the heart of Dare today to bid farewell to Bernard Circus, the poet and politician who was shot and killed at the gates of the Maroon Palace after Rayne's inauguration ball. With hundreds of police officers and riot gear on duty and traffic barred on major thoroughfares, the normally chaotic section of the city took on a somber atmosphere. Millennialist anthems played from loudspeakers along Freedom Avenue as Swordish citizens of various ethnicities stood shoulder to shoulder, many of them in tears. Others leaned out windows or over balcony railings to watch the procession. President Rayne gave a unifying message to all of Sordland by attending the funeral. He paid his respects to Circus and met with his close relatives. Rayne also made an emotional speech that touched thousands of attendees. He finished his speech with a quote from Circus. They did not let us sing our songs. They are afraid of the dawn. They are afraid of hope, but our songs will be sung. Construction begins for high-speed railway. Taurus Holding has been awarded a 2-year contract for an extensive infrastructure project as part of the L1 high-speed railway project in Sordland. In addition to the ground investigation, Taurus will be responsible for subgrade, bridge, track laying, and providing the design of all civil structures, including ground retaining walls and earthworks for the railway. Taurus said it could build the line much stronger than planned and at much lower cost, according to a letter seen by The Economists. But the USP MP Albin Clavin had warned letting Taurus build L1 would be extremely questionable. Who exactly is he? We'll come to him in a minute. The L1 railway project involves the widening and upgrade of hundreds of kilometers of existing railway between Lockhaven and Holsword. The high-speed railway will pass from Enrica and Gelsword as well as connecting the towns of Descat, Anka, and Victoriat to the capital. Albin Clavin is a Swordish politician who currently serves as member of the GNA of Sordland since 1949. He is a member of the USP, regarded to be leader of the progressive faction of the party. Albin has recently risen to significance during the Alfonso administration as an aggressive debater and strong supporter of Alfonso and his policies. He was instrumental in the passing of free market reforms of Alfonso. He became famed for his controversial speeches and was labeled face of a new generation by the media. After the recession, he joined the calls for Congress to elect a new presidential nominee and abandoned Alfonso. Albin nominated himself as the next candidate, but did not get much support in Congress, which eventually led to the candidacy of Rayne. He's been calling for reforms with the election of Rayne. So why would he think that this was a bad idea? I don't know. Sordland today. The president stands together with Red Youth. Bernard Circus's funeral was held in Dare today among thousands of attendees. President Rayne drew criticism when he agreed to attend the funeral. While the decision was not, I would have drawn criticism for not attending the funeral, so what the hell does that mean? While the decision was not totally out of the ordinary, why would it be? If the other paper had said that everyone was there, why would this be? The fact that Rayne is giving support to a known member of Red Youth who promoted millennialism throughout his life is unusual. Again, why? Because I was a member of Red Youth in my youth, but whatever. Later in the day, President Rayne was seen together with a group of Red Youth members, standing together and paying respects to Circus. Nationalists who saw Circus as a traitor heavily criticized the president's move, which will surely continue among the conservative wing of the United Sordland Party. Never would Sol have thought that his party would be led by someone who stands together with a communist who studied in the homeland of millennialism. Well, I think we know where Sordland today stands. Wait a minute. No. There was another story there. The risky railway project. The government has announced a new mega infrastructure project to help alleviate the symptoms of the recession. When the Minister of Economy announced the launch of one of the most contested construction projects in Sordland, a high-speed railway between Lockhaven and Holsword, he said, "This line crossing the most populated areas of Sordland will ease traffic congestion, boost trade, and improve logistics." The contract for the project was given to an inexperienced company named Taurus Holding with the decision of the President. Mega projects, such as the construction of ports, transport lines, including railways and motorways and power plants, typically cost billions of SR. They are difficult to manage due to their scale, high levels of complexity, and substantial impact on communities, the environment, and state governments. The decision of such a vital project to be given to a company like Taurus should not have been taken so easily, as they lack the large-scale experience and the organizational capacity to complete such a big task. Plans for wider and faster railway networks between the two most economically developed cities have circulated since the 1940s, and was promised by President Alfonso before the 1949 elections. Well, it was either between the experienced slow dinosaur or the efficient yet overbearing oligarchical, probably pseudo-monopoly. The free market isn't free. We have to make sure it is. Give everyone equal opportunity. Briefing on the current diplomatic situation at the Blue Mansion in Lockhaven. The Blue Mansion in Lockhaven hosted us for the important diplomacy gathering. The door opened, and David Wishi, once a lecturer to me, now the Minister of Foreign Affairs, gently made his way towards my desk. "May I sit down, Mr. President?" Are we friends with this guy? I don't know. Are we friends with this guy? Due to his connection with Vichy, David was still with Arthur Vichy. He was seen as a controversial member, known for his non-partisan opponent of souls, publicly criticizes his own party, and he works closely with me. Okay. I forget. Helping out the immigrants of Swedish and Bluish origin while serving as Consul General in Lesbia. Promoting social democracy and human rights and so on. Okay. Plus he helps out the Bluish people. Okay. Leave the formalities aside, David. Please take a seat. Ah, right. I'm still getting used to your new position, Anton. He slowly sat down, taking care not to aggravate the arthritis in his knees. He'd always had an air of gravitas about him, and old age had only served to deepen that. After he settled himself, he regarded me with delight, his blue eyes sparkling. "Look at you, Anton, the 4th President of Sordland. What a privilege for me. I still remember the first day you took my class at the Dare University of Culture. And remember how hard we worked on the Agnolian trade agreement together? That's interesting. I'm curious to see how the interactions and dialogues would have been different if we had gone with a different university. Countless late nights at the ministry to finalize. It was an experience for sure. We signed our best trade deal yet with a good slew of trade advantages over Agnolia. It was even somewhat unfair from my point of view. Somehow the inexplicable ebb and flow of life has led us here, to positions where we can change the course of history. This is our opportunity to shape the future, and we will do precisely that. I'm looking forward to our new foreign policy. He started coughing again, this time for longer. Would you like some tea or water? Oh yes, please. Tea and water sounds nice. Thank you very much. He smiled. Livia brought 2 cups of tea along with a glass of water and placed them on the table. It seems you still remember how much I like tea. Nowadays it really does wonders to my throat. Should ask about his health, I suppose. How's your health, David? Oh, I haven't had any big complications except the usual, after that heart attack earlier this year. The health complications aren't a hindrance to my work, of course, but thanks for asking. How's the Rayne family? We're slowly starting to get used to the routine. As time passes, I realize it more. Family is the most important thing in life. We must take care of them. The door opened. Yosef and Lucien joined us for the briefing as the tall case clock hit the hour mark. Peter, however, was missing. I wondered if he was late from all the drinking he did at the party in Lockhaven. We'll talk more later, President Rayne. Welcome, everyone. I guess we could be nice to these guys, too. Sure. How was your travel at Lockhaven? A little bumpy due to some turbulence. I arrived via a military cargo plane that landed at Lockhaven International. I took the train. It was a little slow, but I can still recommend it for the beautiful landscape. I also had the possibility to work on a couple of things during the ride. From what I've heard, it will be much faster in the near future when the L1 high-speed railway is finished. Exactly. It will hopefully be one of our major achievements. Since Mr. Vectorn doesn't seem to be coming today, I think we're ready to start. I will start by providing a brief overview of our current status with our neighbors. What would you like to start with? Well, let's hear about Agnolia. Our brotherly nation to our northeast, Agnolia. They're still diplomatically non-aligned and probably has one of the most democratic systems between our neighbors. Economic stagnation is a worry for them. Their primary issue is their heavy reliance on foreign investment from us. And we apparently just screwed them out of a trade deal. Agnolia is our most friendly neighbor. We've been allies for the longest time after Rumburg annexed Dome. This fact needs to be a part of the equation. Unsurprisingly, the Agnolian Prime Minister, Martin van Hoorten, is expecting better cooperation through a new fairer trade deal with us. It was one of his election mandates. Well, a more comprehensive trade deal sounds beneficial to all sides. Both sides could gain from it, but Agnolia has more to win than us. They want to protect their weaker industries, which are profiting from selling our goods. Which we are profiting from selling our goods to. Additionally, the latest numbers indicate that currently 1 million Agno-Sordish citizens live in the Agenland region of Sordland, which creates a link between foreign policy and our internal affairs. These people have suffered socio-economically, which led them to crime and other problems. In addition, a relaxed immigration policy was one of Agnolia's main requests, which is unacceptable. Most of the migrants in our country haven't even assimilated into Sordish culture. Adding more won't help. I mean... I can't really see a downside to this, though. Like, the worrying over acceptance of culture and assimilation and shit is a non-issue. Because in one generation, that's gone. So, more people means growing cities because it means suddenly you have a bunch of new people that need shit to establish themselves, and therefore it kind of helps. Not to mention adding to the tax base. I support a more relaxed immigration policy myself. I would rethink the matter seriously because it has great influence on our society and values. But they're already a half Agenland region anyway. It doesn't matter. We should remember that we promised to keep our immigration laws relaxed in the election campaign. Well, there you go. Let's talk about Volksland. Our cousin of old across the Markian Sea wished to have good relations with us. As we all know, Vogsland is a socialist republic aligned with United Kantana. They're an important regional player, yes, and we may need them militarily to help push Rumburg back. It's also the most significant sea power in eastern Mercopa. We had hostile relations with them after several wars in the 19th century, which we wouldn't want to experience again. Recently, the relationship has warmed up thanks to Emmerich Hegel. As a result, diplomatic talks can be conducted in the future. I mean, neutrality is nice and all, but we don't necessarily just being friends with a proxy. It doesn't necessarily put us under the influence. We can just as easily be friends with other proxies for the other side. Regionally, I think it's important, especially, like I said, to help maybe get a little bit of influence against Rumsburg. Breaking the ice with Vogsland would be good, if we were to rise diplomatically. I agree they would be potential allies, in my opinion. The situation in the region necessitates we find allies. That's something that we came across, I think in one of the lore videos, is that we're kind of devoid of friends right now. And we have to come up with a couple. They haven't been in good relations with us for the past 200 years. Recently, they've also joined the Communist Kantana Security Pact, subjugating themselves to United Kantana. On top of that, territorial issues flare up between Agnolia and Vogsland because of the Helgeland Island. The Sordish Navy is very concerned with this volatile situation, which would be good for us, because if we're going to befriend one of them, we probably want to befriend both of them. Otherwise, we're going to end up finding ourselves in a war. Again, we don't want that. We don't want that at all. Lucian looked slightly worried. Unfortunately, billions of Sordish Ren worth of cargo is transported close to Vogslandian maritime borders of the Markian Sea and the Grey Strait. This causes significant risks to our imports and exports in the case of a deterioration in relations. The strait is of high strategic value to us. Yosef, the Navy is keeping an eye on the situation from a distance, right? We are actively monitoring the sea routes and cargo ships. For now, there is no immediate threat, but we don't know what can happen in the future. Okay, so what's the situation in Wayland? It is tumultuous in the south, as always. Victor Smolak is expanding his power among protests from Wezek people. However, he is quite positive about a normalization of relationship between our countries. Reports indicate that they have been warming up to Kantanan international aid. As you know, Wayland's stability was always a concern for the region. Okay, so they're also friends of Kantana. But if we want to help them, we must not treat refugees like we did in the 30s. I still can't stomach the inhumanity that those people suffered. I mean, me too. Sordland paid enough by housing millions of refugees, no more. Why help such a disorganized state? We need all the friends we can get. Rumburg is a big threat. We have to have some friends. If nothing else, just the possibility of spreading our borders a little bit thicker, you know? A trade agreement with them would improve stability and increase mutual trade. There would be many bargaining chips discussed, but Wayland could be a new partner in the region. We would also invest in stability there. Our main goal should be to avoid a refugee crisis like the late 1920s. That civil war had major security and economic repercussions on Sordish soil. One of the demands of President Smolak was to tighten our immigration laws so the political refugees don't escape to Sordland. There has been a recent purge that pushed many Blootish to flee to Bergia. It is definitely troubling. Government outpost has regained its importance due to this. I'm sure you would remember that winter at the border outpost, Mr. President. Oh, I see. He was right. I did remember that winter. I remembered how cold it was when I let the refugees slip through. I was discharged because of my duties as a result, by Major Josef Lancia, no less, spending the rest of my service cleaning toilets and sleeping in a cell. In fact, there had been a similar refugee situation in the past. Even Mr. President himself chose to disobey direct orders from his commanding officer at the time. Well, I did what was right. Soldiers do not decide on what is right. Soldiers do what they are told to do. And, Mr. Soldier, I am now Presidente, so... He opened his mouth to continue, but David cut in. Our focus should be on the current matters. The British minority is very large inside Wayland, too, which is a factor to consider. It is in our national interest to prevent the formation of a failed state on our western border. Wayland has been increasingly aligning itself towards the Communist Alliance, another point to analyze. Alright, well, let's move on. Two important neighboring countries remain, Lesbia and Rumburg. Which would you like to hear about first? Let's talk about Lesbia. We need more friends. Our southern neighbor is aligning itself more and more with Arcasia. Lesbia is currently led by Prime Minister Patricio Alvarez. They are the jewel of the continent and the second largest economy in Maricopa. Though wealthy, Lesbia suffers from excessive economic inequality. Our past relations have been great, but during the last decade their investments to Sordland dwindled due to our instability. Well, allying with the richest region would be beneficial. It could be, but it would also mean that we would draw closer to the Arcasia bloc and near the Arcasian Treaty Organization. I'm certain that the recession has a lot to do with their retraction of investments. Once they see that money isn't in the picture, they vanish rather quickly because they are capitalists. They have shown a selfish attitude during the Wayland Civil War by closing their borders and funneling refugees to cross into Sordland. Lucian cleared his throat. This is a toughie. We can't border sit, fence sit on this one. I mean, on the one hand, I don't think that our values are too different, per se. But it also isn't just about the money. I feel like this is a big one. I feel like this is going to make or break which way we go. If I say that I'm okay with Vogsland and Wayland and not with them, then it looks like we're heading towards United Cantana. I wish I knew what this was doing behind the scenes. Well, let's try and just have everybody in a positive light, and maybe no one will be happy. The capitalism of Lesbia is inspirational to me. Look at their economic power. Everything comes at a cost. In Lesbia, the cost is wealth inequality, but business people get richer and richer. There are hundreds of very privileged oligarchs who invest inside and outside of Lesbia. Some made significant business investments in the cities of Benfi and Valgan. Okay, what's the situation with Rumburg? Now to the most troublesome nation, Rumburg, a constitutional monarchy led by Queen Beatrice Livingston. I highly advise caution and calculated action against Rumburg. Our military must be prepared. The threat is real. They are strong and have the motivation as well as the means to damage us. We shouldn't give them any reasons to pursue aggression. I'll take your advice into consideration. These types of nations will always try to make up a casus belli and reason to declare war. While Thornborough openly denies such claims, their past and current actions make it clear that they want to destabilize us. The weapons caches found by our intelligence agency clearly shows what their goals are. Our military must be steadfast and our diplomacy valiant. Yosef looked stern and full of resolve. Well, the Rumburg threat is one of our top priorities, you can be assured of that. We're always in dialogue with our Rumburg ambassador to make sure a channel is open to solve disputes. We could use their aggressive attitude against them by convincing the international community. It's true. Lucian grabbed the Lockhaven Times newspaper and put his finger on the article about the latest diplomatic incident. Their abrupt announcement about the closure of the Rumburg consulate in Lockhaven is yet another step in their escalation. This covers the overview of the current situation. We'll move on to our trade choice and the response to Rumberg's diplomatic escalation. Boy, the sun began to set over the hills surrounding Lockhaven. The team was ready to give advice on the new trade initiative and the response to the latest diplomatic incident in Rumberg. Peter arrived late and a little rougher than usual. It must have been the drinking from last night. Hey there, folks. Excuse my delay. I'm sure I didn't miss anything we didn't already know. You were still supposed to be part of this meeting, also on time. Punctuality is important. We are talking about serious subjects here. Don't comment. Let's just not comment right now. I stood in silence, which prompted Peter to answer them. It was a one-time thing. Let's just get on with it. Lucian and Yosef looked at Peter before David moved away from the subject. The Vice President will be part of the trade delegation, so it's great to have input on that subject, but also on the Rumberg incident. There are two issues at hand. Which topic should we tackle first? Let's talk about trade negotiations. Our primary goal will be to successfully sign a trade agreement with one of our smaller neighbors. We have two options with our trade initiative: start of new negotiations with our old partner Agnolia, and forming a new cooperation with Wayland. I think Agnolia would be a better choice at the moment. Wayland is unstable, but we could benefit more from Magnolia at the moment. I don't know, but would stabilizing Wayland be better for us at the moment, though? Like strengthening someone who's already a friend with us versus strengthening someone who's neutral to us. We're trying to get friends here. I don't know that they're necessarily friends, though. I mean, are they friends? Can I hide this for a minute? Good relations. So we've already got that. Meanwhile, Wayland is neutral with us, so this would help. I would like to help out these guys, but I feel like they might also be more willing to wait just a minute while we shore up a little bit with Wayland there. Let's talk about the trade deal with Wayland. Dealing with a fractured country like Wayland has its positives and negatives. Although it will be lucrative in short term, there are risks associated with dealing with such a country. They are proposing co-investment projects and a no-tariff agreement. They are also offering oil in return for attracting foreign capital interests from Sordland. However, it is possible that there will be international ramifications of getting closer with a country like Wayland. All in all, this is a very lucrative deal for us. However, we need to think about the consequences. I certainly don't support the decision to become friendlier with Wayland. We carry their burdens for decades. Their migrants flooded our country, and now they're expecting a deal from us. Maintaining influence with Wayland could prove useful. Yes, it is risky, but think about our influence on an undeveloped region like that. We could also sell more products and enter their market easily. I'm of the opinion that it's simply too risky. Yes, we could gain resources and immediate capital, but I'm afraid of the consequences. Well, if even our chief diplomat thinks it's too risky. But is that not what we're after? We really need friends. But the thing about investment worries me too. Like, are we going to be giving up budget to this, or... And risky how, though? They say it's risky, but what does that mean? Just risky for investment because it's an unstable region? That could be a possibility, I suppose. This is... Yeah, maybe we should look long-term for this instead. Because that's really kind of all this thing is hinting at, is that Although I think Bergia was suffering economically, I think is one of the things. It's not going to give me the damn region. Okay, fine. Region. Bergia. Has a vibrant economy, but also has high unemployment. Well, maybe we should, yeah. Let's maybe go with the safer bet. I tend to agree. Okay, pretty much everyone's like, yeah. If we wish to go forward with the deal when the time comes, there is the topic of immigration to consider. Victor Smolak is a known isolationist. Our promise to keep our immigration policy relaxed will not help at all. He blames us for bringing Western interests to the region. He also doesn't want his political opponents to flee here. I personally don't like the idea of getting too close to Wayland. Or me. Okay, well. Let's talk about Agnolia then. First off, the reason behind this option is more diplomatic than economic, though of course we can't forego the added economic value. Agnolia is an old ally and a valuable trade partner. The point we are at with the early negotiations is around the steel trade. They are demanding we buy their steel for a higher price. That is because they think that the deal is far too unbalanced as it is. Their second main demand is a privileged access to our agricultural market. If we are to fulfill their demands, in return they are offering a full alliance with Sordland against Rumburg. Looking at the current advances of Rumburg near our borders, having a coalition against Rumburg would prove extremely useful. Obviously, there will be consequences for entering a full alliance. Mainly the issue is around the Helgi Islands. Vogsland has clear intentions on taking over the island one way or another, and entering a military alliance with Agnolia will make them furious. I want to state my support for the decision to stick to our old ally Agnolia. Even though I disagree with their demand to relax immigration, we have cooperated with them on many issues in the past. And Agnolia is a solid partner for us. David and the President worked on the previous comprehensive trade agreement in the 30s. There are obviously subjects that we would still need to tackle, like our economies, the traded goods, and what to do with immigration. My opinion is that this is a good deal and we should go for it. The new Agnolian Prime Minister is trying to improve the existing relationship. The downside is that we would need to make concessions, the reality of any trade deal. Alright, well, let's open a new agreement that would satisfy all sides. That would be the best outcome. If you decide that Agnolia is a good option, another point is that they have a very democratic system. After the recent elections, the Prime Minister has a mandate to arrange a fairer deal with us. Martin Van Horten also is an avid supporter of relaxed immigration. Since we said we will keep immigration relaxed, it will help us. Regardless, if we're going to increase our regional influence to previous levels, we might need to make amends with our neighbors. Ultimately, the decision will be up to you as always. Since we did not promise to align with either East or West, it is very likely that their concerns would be more around the deal itself. We also need to consider the effects of our economic doctrine plan. The fact that we are headed towards a market economy will have an influence. Good negotiators optimize the interests, which make the differences become trivial, allowing both sides to reach a deal. Very true, Mr. Vector, and we have a lot of time to prepare before the scheduled visits to Wayland and Agnolia. I believe this gives a brief overview of our current options. We should address the diplomatic incident. Can we not be done yet? Rumburg Consul, Sir Bran Harrington, announced the closure of the 120-year consulate. Now their diplomatic staff is leaving the city to go back to Thornborough. He blamed the lack of security in Sordland due to the assassination and the subsequent protest, but it's obvious they're making excuses. Bastards. First they close their consulate, and then they blame our security? Well, the situation is not under control, but they're destabilizing it and then using that as an excuse, so... I mean, they're playing with this, but I wouldn't say this first part is true. And their concerns could be genuine, I mean, the correct response is their concerns could be genuine, but only because they're playing with us. I mean, I know exactly what's going on here, and I wish there was an option for that. Well, let's go with the conclusion, then, that they're playing with us. Isn't it telling when other countries are working with us while Rumburg is just cutting more ties with us? The neglect of President Alfonso and the chaos of the elections delayed our diplomatic efforts. Now there are only 2 Rumburg diplomatic missions left in Sordland. One is the consulate in Dare, and the other is the embassy in Holsword. We're accustomed to the usual rhetoric, but this is far more serious. They're playing with fire. Look at what the Wayland destabilization has done to the region. Sordland breaking apart would tear Mercopa apart. In my entire career, I have never seen our Rumburg relations suffer this much. The previous low point was the annexation of Dome. Josef Lancia was furious. He barely kept himself from slamming the desk. There are worrying developments like the smuggled arms in the build-up near the border. Our military must be buffed up to stand against a regional power like Rumburg. We'll never stand up against Rumburg. Are you fucking kidding? We either respond to this aggressive act with a diplomatic condemnation, or we retaliate by closing our consulate in Dome. I want to say that an escalation would be risky this early in our presidency. No shit. We have neither the industry nor the money to fund such a thing. We should focus on creating a negative image of Rumburg in the international scene. The people of Sordland must be protected no matter the cost. I say we respond equally. That's untenable. We cannot do that. Oh, they definitely can bully us. According to their military strength, they can definitely bully us. Writing an official diplomatic response condemning this unreasonable act. Declare Rumburg aims to destabilize Sordland and the region, which it totally does. As you wish, Mr. President, I shall begin work by immediately informing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Swaying the international stage is key in the long-term strategy. I wish we'd reacted more strongly. If we don't confront them, they'll keep escalating the situation. Getting more people on board to pressure them, however, is a better idea. I, on the other hand, am glad we're taking the more cautious road. Our trade delegation will begin work towards the end of the year. We expect a final negotiation and signing to happen next year. I'm very much looking forward to visiting Stallport and Rocklovitz with party animals like David and Simon. Ha ha ha. Peter laughed. Josef narrowed his eyes and stared at him. Well, that concludes our meeting, Mr. Rayne. Thank you all for coming. Take my leave then, sir. The meeting concluded and the team dispersed. Our diplomatic action plan officially began. Oi, oi, oi. Well, I mean... yeah. I do believe that Josef here is part of the old guard anyhow. So I'm not terribly thrilled with this guy anyhow. Captain during the Civil War, served under Sol. And a critic of Alfonso, yeah. So he's not really a friend of ours anyhow. So, keeping him happy is only necessary so long as we can keep him reined in. We do not need to acquiesce to his demands and his idiocy bumbling us into a war with a country that we cannot win against. So, we will continue on next time.